Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 11 of season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. called Aftershocks. And here indeed we do see the aftershocks of the last episode. The aftershocks of Trip's death, and of course in the aftershocks of Skye getting powers. In her case, a little bit more literally. And all in all, I thought this was an alright episode. My really big complaint is that taking down all these leaders of Hydra just seemed a little bit too easy. I mean, this is something that was accomplished over the course of one episode, and it's even sort of debatable as to whether or not it was the main plot. I mean, again, if you're going to do something like this, like kill, at least 4 of the major leaders of Hydra who are still around, this feels like something that should have at least taken a couple of episodes. But at the end of the episode, the only ones who are still roaming around are Bakshi, who's once again a prisoner of Coulson. There's Dr. List, and who we did see originally in Winter Soldier. He was the scientist guy who was hanging out with Baron Strucker, who is the other major leader of Hydra who is still out there. And of course, he's going to be popping up in Age of Ultron. So, as much as ground down as S.H.I.E.L.D. seems to be at the moment, Hydra, oddly enough, doesn't seem to be faring that much better. So, I don't know. This all just seemed, as I said, a little bit too easy. I mean, yes, after what happened in Puerto Rico with losing Trip, Team Coulson was definitely due for a big win. But, come on, guys, at least space it out over 2 episodes. Anyway, so let's just kind of get right into things and start talking about what's going on with folks on the character level. And Hunter was fun this episode. It's always very interesting to watch British actors adopt American accents. And as is per the usual, this is something that, well, they have mixed success with. Now, granted, I have seen more than, I would have to say, on the whole, I've noticed that British actors tend to be better at doing American accents than American actors tend to be at doing British accents. Now, with that said, I have seen some British actors going out there and trying to do American accents and really, really sucking at it. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Doctor Who. I may have loved Perry as a companion, but Nicola Bryant could not stay consistent with that American accent. And, never mind some of the American characters they've had on New Who, like that, never mind. So in any case, Hunter, I mean, he pulls off a decent accent, but there's just something to me that as an American sounds slightly off about it. Like if I were to meet this guy on the street, I wouldn't, pick up immediately, oh, this is a British guy sounding American. I'd be like, where exactly is this guy from? There's just something about him that sounds a little off. I'm a little weirded out by that whole thing where he's like, where he's talking with Bobby, and then she goes, okay, me and Mac are in a support group, and he's just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I get the feeling that Hunter is not buying that at all. But you think that being his ex-wife, Bobby would pick up when he's BSing, especially when he's BSing her. But I think that's one we're just gonna have to let simmer. Now, speaking of Bobby and Mac, it is confirmed that they're up to something, and that they want the toolbox, the files that Fury gave Coulson. Now, what is it? We don't know that they're up to. We don't know. Now, I don't think for a second that these guys are secretly Hydra or working for bad guys in some way, shape, or form. No. That does not seem right to me. I think one possibility that jumps to my mind is SWORD, the Sentient Worlds Observation and Reconnaissance Division, I think is what it stands for. And this is an agency much like S.H.I.E.L.D. that was created by none other than Joss Whedon in the X-Men comics that he wrote, as kind of one of his big stamps on the Marvel Universe, and an agency that's out there basically to really focus in on dealing with threats that are extraterrestrial. So, the Inhumans, if we know anything about them, do have some very strong extraterrestrial ties, and you would think that, yeah, something like the toolbox that Coulson has, that strikes me as the sort of thing that Sword would very much want to get their hands on. Another possibility that comes to my mind is maybe just someone else out there who was high-ranking Shield that survived um, Agents of Shield Order 66, shall we call it, and thinks that maybe they should be the leader of Shield and not Coulson, and Mac and Bobby are working for them. Now, who that could be? Well, honestly, the first person that really jumps to my mind is this character called the Contessa. Now, not the Baroness. She's the bad guy who died in this episode. And Contessa was basically this European nobility lady who joined Shield and was the original Nick Fury's girlfriend for a long time. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that we saw her get killed on the show, I would strongly suspect it was Victoria Hand. There's also the possibility of, it's been announced that Edward James Olmos is going to be coming on the show. I'm not 100% sure if they've said if he's going to be playing someone who's a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. or not, but it's possible that Mac and Bobby could be working for whoever he is. But in any case, as I said, I don't think that they're bad guys at all. I think that's nonsense. Now, speaking of Mac, I did really like watching him sort of lose his cool and really blow up at Coulson and all that. I mean, the guy, he had legitimate reasons. He was mind controlled. He had a hand in events that led to the death of a fellow agent, and just simply the idea of him becoming virulently opposed to anything alien just puts Skye in that much more of a corner. And then just sort of look at what the whole situation does to Simmons. She starts going on about superhuman powers being a disease. And again, this sort of harkens back to some work that Joss Whedon did years ago when he was writing X-Men. And there he presented what he kind of called the logical third alternative stance to on mutants. And that was the idea that mutants are in fact people with a disease, a condition that was in need of treatment. And Simmons seems to have adopted something of that stance, only it's more like they're not people with a disease, it's more like they're people with a plague who need to be cured or for the good of everybody. And of course, she's rambling on about this in front of Skye, who's just found out that she has superhuman powers, and, inadvertently used her powers to shatter. Well, Trip was already dead, but she shattered what was left of his body using her powers. So, of course, Skye freaks the hell out even more. Incidentally, that juice that Bobby gave her, agave juice, Bobby wasn't kidding. That's good stuff. But anyway, we also get to see some nice moments with Simmons where he sort of reminds us of the situation from Yes Men, where he was indeed mind controlled. He has some experience with his mind not doing what his body not doing what his mind wants. And then he gets that really great moment where he covers things up for Skye, and she kind of sees that, hey, as bad as things are, there is at least one person here who is in my corner. And she totally needed that. She absolutely needed that at the moment. And that was really a great moment between her and Fitz. The two damaged people. Fitz is still kind of emotionally and even physically a little damaged from what happened before, and now Skye is in a place where she is just like freaked the hell out. I'm kind of wondering, just where this sort of closeness might go. I mean, if I can imagine a scene later on down the road where, Skye's having another tough time and she turns to Simmons for another hug. I'm sorry, Fitz for another hug. And then Simmons walks in and, wow, that's going to be potentially awkward. Be fun as hell, but, yeah. Definitely not a fun situation for either Fitz or Simmons. Not a huge amount to say about what was actually going on with May and Coulson in this episode. Although, I definitely do really love that banter between May and Coulson. I mean, this is really just, again, shows you that Coulson is like the one person on the team who May is really, really genuinely comfortable with. And her making fun of his acting skills, that was pretty darn fun. I liked that quite a lot. Um, we don't get to see Ward this episode, so that's kind of a let's see, what else? Yeah, I think that kind of covers everything on the Shield side of things. So let's talk about the other situation. So to my surprise anyway, we kind of get to see what Sky's mom was like before, back when she was alive, and I'm really glad that it turns out that her mom wasn't, to put it bluntly, just some Chinese lady who hooked up with a white dude. All right, her mom was somebody who was a part of the Inhuman Society, and apparently a really important person, sort of a guide, a mentor to the new Inhumans. But of course, this sort of begs the question: is why is Sky's mom doing this? Why isn't it, somebody who is properly affiliated with the Inhumans, like the Inhuman royal family or something like that? And of course, the actual Inhumans movie isn't going to come out until for another 4 years. So, what are they going to be able to do with the Inhumans in the meantime? And again, I'm spitballing here, but I'm wondering if the Inhumans that we're seeing here on the show, like Sky, her mom, this Gordon guy, I wonder if maybe they aren't people who have some knowledge of the Inhumans, but are cut off from the core of Inhuman society, the Inhuman royal family, Attilan, the hidden city of the Inhumans. But they know enough about what they are, and they have some level of access to Terrigen crystals, and they're just sort of out there trying to survive, keeping this thing that they have going, almost not like a secret society, something like that. They may not have all of the answers of who they are, how they have these powers. They might just have folklore. And if they do that, then it kind of makes sense that they could use the human royal family for that movie, and then use the sort of secret society of Inhumans to sort of pave the way for that. And then it's in the movie proper where it would of course be introduced to the world, the public as a whole, people who don't watch the show, and where a lot of the details could be more fully filled in. So I think that's kind of what Marvel might be doing, in a way to sort of have their Inhumans cake and eat it too. But once again, that's just me speculating a little bit. Now this Gordon character, a lot of people are thinking that he might be a character called Reader from the comics. I know nothing about this character, just that he is supposed to be able to like turn anything he reads into reality. Here they seem to have opted for teleportation powers. Pretty good teleportation powers, by the way, for TV. But yeah, no real opinion about him whatsoever. And of course, this brings us to Reyna and her disillusionment at what has happened to her. And she talks about how her grandmother had told her about how she would change and that she would become like an angel. Well, this sort of would fit into the idea that there's, among people who are like Reyna, like Sky, people who have ancestry of people who know that there's something a little bit more to them than human. This sort of sounds like the kind of like folklore that they might pass on to their various descendants, which again would kind of keep with the idea of some sort of secret society of Inhumans out there, and them having an incomplete knowledge of exactly what happens or how all this works. I mean, Reyna seems to have never realized that the idea that she might not stay as physically beautiful as she was ever a possibility on the table. But in Inhuman society proper, it is known that, hey, yeah, you might get superpowers, but you might turn into something really, really ugly. You might get scaly skin, or you might grow horns, or you might end up like turning into like a little orange dog-like guy. And I'm not talking about Lockjaw here. There was an Inhuman series I read years ago, and it focused on a guy who undergoes Terrigenesis, and when he goes in there, he's a real handsome, athletic-looking guy, and then when he's changed, he's transformed into this sort of orange little goblin thing. And understandably, he does not take this terribly well. So yeah, Reina, it's does present this very interesting side to getting superpowers. That it's not all fun and games. She says like I've got all these thorns coming out of my body every time I move. I'm hurting myself. I'm in terrible pain. And of course, Cal takes the time. It's like, oh hey, every rose has its thorns. Every rose has its thorns. Every rose has its thorns. Just like every night has its dawn. Just like every cowboy sings a sad, sad song. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, singing about, first of all, I feel bad for you because you don't know that song. Every Rose Has Its Thorns by Poison. That's a good song. That is a really good song. Oh man. But yeah, okay. So yeah, the girl in the flower dress ended up the girl covered in thorns. And then of course she's like, I can't live like this. And Cal's like, yeah, so don't. So she opts for the old, okay, I'm gonna walk into traffic or I'm gonna have these people shoot me. And then Gordon shows up and saves her. So that I think is going to be kind of our doorway into just what exactly this secret society of Inhumans knows about being inhuman. And I love Cal's just absolutely crazy ramblings like, oh yeah, my daughter got superpowers, kick ass. She is going to totally come back to me. It's just like, wow, dude, you are so screwed up in the head. But yeah, in any case, I have a feeling it's going to be more of a case of those two are going to come to blows before the end of the season. And it's probably going to be pretty badass. And yeah, guys, I think that's like everything I have for you this time around. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good